Now, in a week of commemorations of VE Day, tomorrow is the anniversary itself. People who were alive at the time, especially those who were involved in defending Britain from the Nazis, will be remembering where they were when they heard the longed-for announcement and how they celebrated.
Hello, Eileen.
Hello, are you Louise?
I'm Louise.
Do come in.
Oh, lovely to meet you.
Eileen Coyle was approaching her 15th birthday on VE Day in 1945. Now, almost aged 95, she can still recall that moment in history.
There was a feeling of joy. We didn't have a virus, and of course nobody knew about television, so it was quite quiet actually. We could put lights on. You didn't need blackout curtains.
Eileen lived near Clydebank on the outskirts of Glasgow, one of the hardest hit parts of the UK during the Blitz in 1941, before eventually being evacuated.
It was terrifying because every bomb felt as though it were aiming for our direct shelter.
Eileen's family did get to return to their home, and upon VE Day, she remembers more humble celebrations.
There wasn't a street party that I can recall, but neighbours were kind of chatting and very, very happy about it. A day of absolute relief. Thank God it's over.
Working-age women like Joyce Wilding took on roles that were traditionally held by men. The 100-year-old from Sussex became a member of a secret organisation, dealing in Morse code.
We were called Churchill's Secret Army, helping to really run their organisation in many different ways. Coders, wireless operators. One felt one was being useful and doing something really helpful.
Joyce experienced VE Day celebrations in London, where thousands took to the streets.
One had been under blackouts and bombings and really very worrying times for, quite a while. So this was absolutely the most joyous occasion I've ever known, and still say it is.
It may have been 80 years since this momentous day, but for these women, it's one that's etched in their minds. Louise Scott, News at 10.
So 80 years, of course, since Victory in Europe Day. I've been talking to some people who were there at the time, some with very vivid memories, others not so much. The overwhelming Allied invasion of northern France early in the summer of 1944 was just the beginning of the end. The death throes of Nazi rule lasted 11 months longer as German forces were driven out of Normandy and across northern Europe in ferocious battles. Mervyn Kirsch was with the Royal Army Ordnance Corps as the liberating troops advanced.
Once we broke out of Normandy particularly, it was the end of August. It was just moving, pretty well moving all the time. And of course from the east we knew what was happening. They were racing at a faster rate coming westward. There's undoubtedly that it was the end of Germany, just a matter of time. Time and lives in the meantime. As I went from France to Belgium to Holland, I felt I was liberating people, helping people, they were our allies, our friends. But when I crossed the border into Germany, it was a different feeling entirely. They were enemies. Enemies not just at the end of gun, but hated, put it that way. We were glad of their demise.
Hitler's suicide in the Berlin bunker was followed by a series of surrenders as his generals capitulated. And on the 8th of May, the Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, made the announcement that people had waited almost 6 years to hear.
Hostilities will end officially at 1 minute after midnight tonight, Tuesday, the 8th of May. But in the interest of saving lives, the ceasefire began yesterday to be sounded along all the fronts. The German war is therefore at an end. We may allow ourselves a brief period of rejoicing. Today is Victory in Europe Day.
Despite the inevitability, the day itself came as a surprise to Mervyn, who was travelling on a train to Belgium with windows boarded up for protection.
I didn't know anyone on board, so I thought I'd just sleep at the time, take advantage. And I slept through 36 hours till we got to Bruges. We got out of Bruges and amazed to find people dancing, music playing and lights on everywhere. It was obviously a celebration. It was the day after the German surrender, so I missed that one. It was day late.
So you slept through VE Day, you think?
I slept through VE Day. The way I spent VE Day, I always wish I'd stayed awake and I'd have known something about it. We knew it was coming to an end. It was exactly whether it would be that day or a few days later, we didn't know. So it was amazing. It was a wonderful feeling to know that it was all over.
Back home, parties were already in full swing, and those that could celebrated. Ruth Bourne was a Bletchley Park codebreaker and recalls hearing the news.
A friend and I think we ran into the road and there wasn't very much traffic in those days, and we held up a poor unsuspecting motorist and we said, "The war's over, come and have a cup of tea." He parked his car and we celebrated.
Right across the UK, and especially in London, euphoric crowds flooded onto the streets. But for some, such as Marie Scott, who travelled to the capital in her Wren uniform, they were a little too hedonistic.
I had lots of rather repellent kisses from strange men. Everybody was going mad. The whole city was joyous. Men were taking advantage of women in uniform, you can imagine. I suppose a few repellent kisses was a small price to pay.
Small price to pay for freedom.
My friend Betty said to me, "Shall we make for the palace?" I said, "No." I said, "Quite honestly, I'm terrified now." And the surge, they were surging. There was no, and I was just frightened of the crowds. There were millions out, you know, and you could have been trampled, anything. But it was a wonderful, wonderful atmosphere, you can imagine.
Those more inclined to party did so long into the night.
Somebody had lit a bonfire. There were soldiers there, service people, civilians, American soldiers, and we sat around the bonfire and we sang songs. You know, patriotic songs and popular songs, maybe a few rude songs, and we had a wonderful time. I don't think anybody really went to bed that night.
As many carried on celebrating, for others, Churchill's words of allowing just a brief period of rejoicing rang true. As in the East, the war with Japan continued, and with it, the threat still to so many lives. But for Europe, the years of tyranny, of threat, and of fear, at long last, were at an end.
Taking place later to mark the 80th anniversary of the Allied victory over Nazi Germany. Many veterans of the Second World War expected at events across the country. So I've been very lucky to speak with one of those people. His name is Sidney Knott. Let me tell you a little bit about Sidney. He is thought to be one of the last survivors of the RAF Pathfinder Force. We'll tell you more about the Pathfinder Force in just a moment. But today for Sidney is a very special day because today is his birthday. He will be 104 years old. Meet Sidney.
I'm just making sure you look smart.
Yeah. I was born on the 8th of the 5th, 21. And living in Leigh-on-Sea. Played football with my mates all down there and all that sort of thing. And my old school mates.
You are 104 years old on VE Day. That is your birthday. What an extraordinary coincidence that is.
Well, we all have a birthday, don't we? And it just happened to be my birthday.
another blazing battlefield is left behind by British airmen, who have long held the distinction of being the men who go into Germany by night and bring the war right onto German soil.
In 1944, Sydney was a rear gunner in RAF Pathfinders, a specialist crew flying on the very front line.
It was one of the last groups to be formed. It formed in the war. In the early parts of the war, aircraft used to go out and get lost. Bomber command was mainly fly in the dark.
And your job with Pathfinder was to help them navigate
it was
better.
to find the target and mark it with TIs, target indicators, and they would be different colours.
So then the bombers would come
The main force
behind you.
didn't carry, yeah, the main force came afterwards, you see.
Bombing crews are about to make another of their regular visits to Germany's nerve centres. And are the centres nervy? Men and machines are tuned up to perfection.
Do you remember being scared?
It didn't bother me so much as you might think, because I thought I'd never see the end of the war. I had it in my own mind, I'd never see the end of the war.
That's what you thought?
Yes, I thought of that. I never thought I'd ever see the end of the war. It was just one of them things.
I think that plane's like dropping that little bomb there.
£11.
That's it.
Down onto the ground.
Onto the ground, that's right, yes. Yeah.
That would be...
And my dad would have done that, because he had the button to drop the bombs.
Eric's father, Reginald, flew with Sydney. They're now great friends.
And they were flying at 160 miles an hour. Oh, that was fast in those days.
And let us remember those who will not come back. Their constancy and courage in battle, their sacrifice and endurance in the face of a merciless enemy.
It was quiet as a mouse for VE night. I thought, where's everybody? And when I opened the doors and went in, because blackout finished, the pub was full up. I had a job to get in the door. And I got as far as, where they serve your bill. I said to the chap, pint of bitter, please. He said, have you got a glass? I said, no. He said, if you can find a glass, you can have a pint of beer.
What was the atmosphere like on that night?
It wasn't all that joyful, it was just that they were getting together, you know. And then after a while I thought, well, I couldn't get my beer, because no one would part with a glass. So I walked out, and I walked down the different streets that I knew, you know, and think, oh, he used to live there, you know.
And thinking of the colleagues and the people you'd lost?
Yes, yes. But we mustn't forget our losses. Bomber Command had more losses than any other command anywhere. We lost 55,500 odd men, fully trained.
There you go, Grandad. Have a sniff of that.
Oh.
At your age now, your amazing age you've reached, what makes you happy?
Happy birthday. Happy birthday, Sydney.
Oh, contentment. I'm quite content living, you know, just contentment, really. I'm just happy. I've got a nice little family around me. You know.
There you go.
That's it.
Yeah, there we go.
Birthday.
Such a privilege to spend time with Sydney. Today is his birthday, so Sydney and his family are watching. Very happy birthday. We went early with the cake, but we were told Sydney loves cake, so it felt like it had to be done. We should say as well, a big thank you to Eric, who got in touch with us through your voice, alerted to us to Sydney's story. Eric's father, Reginald, served with Sydney in that Pathfinder force, so amazing detail they have about what happened then, their memories of those times. Remember, if you have a story you want to share with us, please head to bbc.co.uk/your voice. So across the UK, people will be celebrating VE Day today. Not many of them will be able to remember the celebrations on this day 80 years ago, but Joyce Terry is one of those. She performed as part of a band in Berlin on VE Day in 1945, and Tim Muffet has been to meet her.
It's all too long since we last had the pleasure of welcoming that clever girl band leader, saxophone and clarinet player, Ivy Benson.
Ivy Benson was a trailblazer. It was the first really famous girl band. There was Vera Lynn #1 and the Ivy Benson Band #2 as the most requested performers.
Joyce will be 100 years old in August.
Did you always love to sing?
Yeah, I could always sing. I remember like 5 or 6, I used to be singing my heart out. If I were the only girl in the world and you were the only boy, yeah.
But when she was 18, she was performing one night in a nightclub in Southport when in walked her idol, Ivy Benson.
She came in to have supper at the club where I was singing. She said, I want you in my band.
That chance encounter changed Joyce's life, and it meant she witnessed an historical day in an extraordinary place.
Tell us how you ended up being in Berlin on VE Day.
We were actually in Germany entertaining the troops. Just suddenly Field Marshal Montgomery said, get us to Berlin, and we all piled onto a coach and were driven to Berlin.
What was it like when you were in Berlin?
We were brainwashed into thinking all Germans are terrible people. And we were sticking our tongues out in the coach. We were going, passing the German people. But then we soon learned that they're human beings. You know, they've got families and they're like us. And, you know, they weren't all Hitler.
Performing in Berlin alongside Ivy Benson's band, from America, the Glenn Miller Orchestra.
And then we all had to get together and do a concert.
Do you feel proud? How do you feel?
Oh, very proud. I wasn't at the time because, you know, it was just the job. It was just doing our job. But now I'm very proud that I had a lot of wonderful experiences in the war.
What did the German people who were there watching make of you? Because you were the enemy, I guess, to them.
They were very thrilled. I think they were pleased the war was over. It made me think, what is war all about? They're lovely people.
Valentine magazine, and here you are, full page.
After the war, Joyce continued to perform on stage, on radio and TV.
Bright and sparkling eyes express so many successful stage attributes. Charm, character and personality.
There you go.
But sadly, there are no known recordings of Joyce singing.
You should do all these broadcasts, but they never recorded anything. And when people say now, oh, we're doing it live, I just think, we always did it live. You got in the studio in the morning and you were on at lunchtime, live.
Let's get on with it.
Yeah, do it.
I'll take that one with me. Can you give us a quick burst of anything?
Mean to me. Why don't you be mean to me? I could do a song quiet with a glass of wine, but I can't sing out. I should be able to sing anything.
We can get a glass of wine. That could be arranged.
I've always got wine in my fridge.
When you look back at your life, and you're about to be at 100 years old, what have you learned? What would you advise other people?
Enjoy it all. It's short. Just have fun, enjoy it. Do the best you can for people and hope they do the same back for you. It's lovely. It's a beautiful, beautiful garden. A garden of Eden, just made for two, with nothing to mar our joy. I would say such wonderful things to you, and there would be such incredible things to do if I were the only girl in the world and you were the only boy.
Tim Muffet, BBC News.
It absolutely makes you smile hearing Joyce's story there. And I think the theme that'll be coming across loud and clear today is that mixture of remembrance and celebration. And Sydney and Joyce and all those voices you'll hear today will very much illustrate that. Just want to show you, if I may, the pictures above London. I think we can see from the helicopter this morning. As Carol's been reporting for us, it is a beautiful day in London. It's a little bit chilly, but we have sunshine for what will be a remarkable day. We're at Westminster Abbey this morning. Of course, the event here will be attended by the King and Queen, the Prime Minister, as well as many of the veterans that you'll be hearing from this morning.
Many of the residents here do have first-hand memories of VE Day. One of them is Olive, who's here this morning. Good morning, Olive, and she's 94 years old, and yesterday she told us about her memories of VE Day.
Marvellous atmosphere. So it was all dancing, eating and drinking. I loved it. Everything was good. You could go out in the street. It was exciting, so exciting.
Olive was 13 on VE Day, and with thousands of others, she took to the streets of London in celebration.
The war was over. How did you feel?
I was just starting life because I'd missed so much.
Olive had snuck out with a friend to join in the fun.
But I was worried as well, in case any neighbours saw me and told Mum.
Well, because you were out celebrating and you should really have been at home.
Well, I shouldn't have been celebrating with someone drinking and dancing and all that, should I?
This is Olive with her mum Emily and dad Charlie. Miraculously, he was also in England on VE Day. A major with the 19th Regiment of the St Pancras Rifles, as Allied forces retreated from the beaches of Dunkirk in 1940, he'd helped delay an advance of enemy troops and was very nearly killed.
He didn't think he was coming back from Dunkirk. They got to the beach. The beach was just bodies. And went out into the water because the boats was picking them up. And he clung to one of the boats. And there was a young fella at the side of him. He said, "Do you think you could post this letter?" He said, "if we don't make it." Oh. So my dad said to him, "Don't you say that." He said, "You mustn't say that. We'll make it." And quick enough. And the machine gun went right through the fella. And my dad turned round, caught his hand with his letter in, took a letter. And when he got home, he posted that letter.
The dead man's family were forever grateful for that letter. Charlie stayed in touch with them until he died, aged 98.
Used to like to help people. Lovely man.
At a British war cemetery in northern France, there is a bench dedicated to Charlie.
How important is that? And how do you feel about that?
Very important. Very proud. He was a good man. He was a good man.